can do it. Today we want to talk about one of the greatest topics in the history of human. We want to talk about power. Take a minute, I can share it with you. Yes. You will see different topics and different discussion about the, take a minute. Yeah. You can see different chapters in a lot of the courses in the bachelor degree, master degree, and PhD and DBA about the power. Power is the most ancient will in human being. As Nietzsche said, will to power is the greatest and most the oldest will in human. It's about the control and dominance against others and sometimes influence and other things. So we can see power as one of the most powerful, not instinct. Honestly, power is not instinct. Power is a desire, is a very passionate will in human being. Here in your course, as a leadership course, we should talk about power because one of the greatest things between the leaders, managers, and also sometimes between the managers and boss is how to use power. Also, there is a book in the market. It is called Power, How to Get It and How to Use It. It is about the psychology of power. It is about 30 years ago. That's written 30 years ago, but up to now, since that time up to now, it is a very good book about the psychology of power. The book How to Get It and How to Use It. Okay, learning objective is define power and its key role in leadership.
Okay.
Sorry. Understand the cross-cultural differences in definition and use of power. Identify the individual organizational sources of power available to leaders. Describe the consequences of power for leader, followers, and organizations. Understand the role of power in leadership and the effectiveness of teams. Identify the power sources available to top executives. Explain the causes of power abuse and corruption and present ways to prevent them, and trace the changes in the use of power, development of empowerment, and explain the consequences for leadership. You cannot find the concept of leadership anywhere and anytime in the history of human being, except that you cannot find the concept of power. You cannot find it. They are they have a very strong correlation with the use and also corruption, abuse of leadership potentials and power. When you are talking about the corruption, when you are talking about the abuse of leadership, dysfunctional leadership, you are talking about the abuse of power. So we have three different definitions, three key definitions here: power, influence, and
Done.
authority. Power. What is the definition of power? The ability of one person to influence other and exercise control over them. So, in the definition of power, we have two keywords: one, influence; two, control. If you don't have any influence, if you don't have any control, or you have one of them and doesn't have another one, for example, you have only control and you don't have any influence. I don't know how is it possible. And you may have some influences and don't have any control. Well, what is the meaning of influence? The power to affect the course of an action. So when you are talking about control, it is about the someone who is doing something. Now, what is something? We have two words here: who and what. Something is doing, something is done, is what is doing, what is done, and who is doing that action. When you are talking about the person, you are talking about the control. When you are talking about the actions, you are talking about the influence. It is, you should know as the graduate and undergraduate students of power and leadership, you should know the specific lines that determine determine the differences between, for example, power, influence, and authority. And the power vested in a position is authority. So, what type of power is authority? It is situational, position-based power. For example, you should have an authority as a teacher, as an instructor. But at the same time, you may not have, for example, authority as a husband, as a wife, as a sibling. So authority is relative to the position, is relative to the situation,
Position.
like a position. And for example, we will talk about charisma and charismatic. Charismatic, it is a personality. Sometimes it is not position based or position focused or situation focused. Okay. So we have three keywords: power, influence, and authority. And after that, we have power and power holder. Power and power holder. The consequences of power and power holder. Power changes those who hold it. Positive effects. More action orientation. When you have some types of power in a field of action, you will be some action oriented. Do you want to have some action based upon your power? Why? Because you have the power of action, the
Action.
power of doing, the power of influence. As we talk about influence, influence is about the course of action. And more sensitive toward others. Yeah, it is the power figure. You have a power figure in front of other people, and you are very sensitive not to destroy your figure in front of other people as a power holder. So when you are power holder, you are very sensitive, more sensitive to other people's against your attack on your against your attack on your, for example, power figure. You don't want to be your power figure will be destroyed. You are, it is a type of self-protecting. It is not honestly a type of self-protecting. It is a type of self-image protecting. You are protecting your self-image, not your real image. Because power is the image other people can see in you, not you have your image. For example, if my body shape is good, I have a good body image. But if you see that my body shape is good, it is not about the body image. It is about the other people's opinion about my body shape. So when you have power, we have two pictures here. How do you think about yourself as a power holder? It's your self-power image. And how other people think about you, about your power holding. How do you think about you? When you wanted to have some influence over their course of action, yes, they also should have a very, very important, significant, and powerful figure of you to let you to have some influence against our course of action. And focus on rules. Uh, Honestly, it is so different about the rules and about the power. We assume that every ruler has power. The power is the tools in the hands of a ruler. If you are a ruler, but you don't have executive power, how can you want to do the rules? You are not ruler. So power is a tools, is a good tools, executive tools in the hands of a ruler. So focus on rules. Why? Because rules determine and also limit the area of your power. It is good because it is not limitation. It is focal point, focal area. It is the focus point you as a power holder should have a focus point of your power. Why? Because spreading your power will weaken your power influence. You cannot have power in all areas of your life. So you should determine and concentrate and focus your power on that area. In that area, yes, you are powerful, you are authorific, you are influential. And more generous, yes, because prosperity is a very good sibling of power. One of the good definition of power. Who is powerful? Someone is powerful that can be generous. But negative effects. So these are the positive effects of power. Orientation, sensitivity toward others, focus on rules, and more generous. And power changes those who hold it. It is our motto about the power holders. Power changes those who hold it. Power changes power holder. It is always a rule about having the power. So power changes the power holders. And negative effects of power. What are the changes? Let me ask it. Okay. Focus on retraining power at all costs. Retaining power at all costs. It's a catastrophe. One of the great philosophers says a good government is a short-term government, and a good ethical system is a very brief order ethical system. A good a good government is a government that doesn't have a long time dominancy against other people. Why? Because after some time, corruption will be in the government. So that philosopher says a good government is a short-term government, a high quality. In the optimum point, government say goodbye to the game of government. And also sometimes in an ethical system that we have a lot of orders, we have ethical orders. For example, in parenting, we have a lot of ethical orders for our children to facilitate the socialization process. If there's a long-term power holder want to retaining their power at all costs. Sometimes it is very tyrannous character about the power holder. You can see some tyrannous character in a power holder. And false belief that they understand others well is a false belief that power holders should and can understand other people very well. It is not true. They are human beings, and sometimes they don't know anything about the facts in their society. They are also human being. Also, power holding has a very, very, very broadcasting and very spreading social network between the old people that under umbrella of the power holding. But after that, the minor groups, the subcategorization are divided to other parts of the power holding area. Oblivious to others' need, it is negative. Sometimes power holders are oblivious to others' need. And lose the ability to empathize. Yes, empathy and sympathy are two parts that you can see in the reaction of people to other people's good or bad feelings, especially bad feelings. For example, when somebody is experiencing the grief process, we have a lot of sympathy with him or her. But when you are coming to me as a client, as a mental illness client, it is not necessary for me to have some sympathy with you because it is your problem and I want to help you solve your problems. If you have sympathy and I have also sympathy, who is the solver? Nobody can solve the problems. So sometimes power holders lose their ability to empathy with other people. They can make them and they can show them as an idol, and they need other people to have some idol worship. So sometimes they think that they are somebody like God. So when you are God, it is not necessary for you to have empathy with other people. But it's wrong. It's a false belief. They are not God. They have only a power in some specific area, and because of that, we see grandiosity. It is delusion of grandiosity. Sometimes they think themselves as a very excessive. They have some excessive sense of importance. Something that you can see in narcissistic personality disorders. In people with narcissistic personality disorders, you can see that, wow, they have an excessive sense of importance. Power holders, because of power to have some dominance against other people, sometimes they see that they are as such that they are very important. So they lose the power of empathy, the ability to empathy and empathize with other people. Wow. And take critical other words. In some countries, in the history of some countries, you can see that some people work and other people will profit from their works and take credit of other folks. It is something like corruption and something like, for example, robbing other works and take credit. You work and I'm willing to increase my credit in the society, in the organization. Why? Because I am your power holder. And it is some type of corruption. Okay. Uh, how do you think about the relationship between the power holders and as leaders? As you know, leadership has two parts, leaders and followers. If the power and to be a power holder is a part of leadership, as a type of leadership, how do you think about the relationship between the power holders as the icons of leadership and the followers and the employees? Is there any relationship in it, the typical relationship between power holders and followers, or no? You cannot think about it. Rajan, how do you think about it? The relationship between the power holders and their followers?
Power holder means they have a permanent position, like they are maintaining position.
Mm-hmm.
Followers is a good leader.
Uh-huh.
His his ideas, his life is motivating others, like influencing others.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the key difference. I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. We can see in the PowerPoint that we have three types of reaction of followers to the type and to the power of power holder. It is related to the power holder characteristic personality and characteristic character, the features of his or her character, features and traits of his or her personality, and also the power area. In some areas, our followers have a lot of compliance to us as the leaders. Sometimes they have commitment only, and sometimes they are resistant. As you know, a lot of revolutions are as part of evolutions. Why? Because in the evolutionary course of action, evolutionary course of thinking, in the history, for example, for the past 100, for example, 100 years, we can see in America an evolutionary course of thinking, for example, in the field of cyberspace. And after, in a specific point, evolutions and to revolutions, we can see, yeah, industrial revolution or cyber revolution and other parts. Because of some people are the icon of some types of leadership, sometimes of power holding, sometimes of dominancy in specific areas, and the followers at the first are compliant, and after that they have commitment, and at the end stage a lot of followers want to be the next leaders, so they will have resistance against the leadership of the follower of the power holders. And what is the meaning of compliance? How do you think about compliance?
Oh,
When and where and in which type of followers we can see compliance as a reaction to power and power holders? In a rural and not civilized country, sometimes you can see that we have only compliance, commitment, is something different with compliance. When you have compliance, it's not necessary for you to think, to hear, to talk. You have only compliance to your leader, to your power holder. You are not assumed. It is not assumed that you are an mm, intellectualistic man or woman or people. You cannot think. You are not rational. Only only dominancy and obedience. Dominancy and obedience. In the very, very old societies, you can see that yes, the relationship between the leaders and power holders and also their followers is the relationship as a type of, for example, compliance. And after that, we can see some thinking and thought movements in between the people. Why? They want to have some commitment with their leaders. They want to have some sense of commitments. Why? They need to accept their leaders. They need to accept their power holders. And emotional acceptance and rational acceptance, social acceptance. Sometimes it is, for example, in prophets, we can see spiritual acceptance. It is commitment. So commitment is by your heart, not by your mind. It is commitment. I want to do it for you as my own self, as my own choice, not as a power overlap and power over mining against me. I have chosen to be committed to you as a follower. But at the end stage, after that, that I say you as a leader, you should obey me. And after that, in the second stage, follower think about the power holder, power area, and leader. And they said, yes, we want to obey you. You are a good leader. You are an intellectual leader. You are a rational leader. You are a careful and useful leader, which is commitment part. But at the end of the journey of leadership, power holding, sometimes we see that power holders are not so fair people. So they have a lot of unfair behavior, unfair judgment, unfair values between themselves and other ordinary people. At that time, ordinary people don't want to obey their leaders. It is the resistance stage. They want to be resistant to their leader. They don't want to obey. Okay, obey their leaders. Power and culture, delegation, use of teams, empowerment, empower distance and uncertainty avoidance. You can see some time of uncertainty. How do you think about the role of uncertainty and ambiguity on the power and on the reaction between power and culture? For example, you can see cultures with high context culture and low context low context culture. What can you see? You can see high context cultures in the countries that can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. We have
Yes.
high context cultures and low context cultures in the theories of culture and leadership and power also. What are the high context cultures? The cultures, for example, uh, Mexican cultures, Latin American cultures, Indian cultures, Iranian cultures, cultures with a history, long-term history. Every word, every action has a lot of meanings in that culture. For example, when you're talking about one word in Middle East cultures, in South American cultures, and Latin American cultures, there are a lot of different meanings about that word. But in low context countries, in low context cultures, only one word and maximum rate two or three meaning. There is no hidden feeling, hidden meaning, and hidden perception about one word, one action, one belief, and other things. There are low context cultures and high context culture. So you can see here power distance and uncertainty avoidance. It is the relationship between the power distance and uncertainty avoidance. Distribution of power and culture. The more equal the power distribution in an organization, the higher the performance. It is the sense of to be equal to each other in a company, in an organization. Why? Equal the power distribution. We don't have any power point, power concentrated point in an organization. The power distribution is so fair among the other members of organization, and they can have some type of belongingness to the organization. They cannot see themselves as the underdog and overdog. They think that we are equal in the different position and work together to gain a unique and a joint goal, a shared goal, a shared meaning. It is the concept of system. It is the concept of organization. So whenever you can see in an organization that we have a very fair share of power, very equal share of power, very good power distribution at the same level between all people, yes, in these organization we can see higher performance. Culture strongly impacts the perception and use of power. It is very, very basic ritual based, very, very, very custom based, very, very value based. What is power? It is related to your value system. What is power? It is related to your rituals and customs in your culture. We have a lot of, for example, custom and rituals that are the exhibition of power. Honestly, they are exhibition of power. In a lot of rituals, you can see the power. For example, in theaters, in movies, in national rituals, national customs, international customs, you can see the symbols and symbolic actions about the power and the power figures. So culture strongly impacts the perception and use of power. One symbol, one meaning, one concept about power in different cultures can be perceived in different types. So if you want to talk about the culture-based power concept, the concept of power, you should talk about the perceived power, not power. Power is something like, for example, timeline. It is perceived timeline because no being, no animals, none of the animals have a perception of time. Only human beings have perception of time. So we can see, for example, perceive tomorrow. How do you perceive? How do you think? How do you understand about the future of your life? It is perceived tomorrow. Something is like that about power. Culture has a very powerful impact, very influential, very crucial impact on your perception about power. In high power distance culture, expectation of power sharing are low. You can see here. You can see power distance and uncertainty avoidance. In relationship between power and culture, we have two elements, power distance and uncertainty avoidance. In high power distance culture, expectation of power sharing are low. The distance between the power holder and followers are very long, are very high. So the followers have a very lower expectation to share power with themselves. They know that the power holder is so far from them. Power holders are not near them. One of the good discussions about the power is the power sources. in individual power sources, organizational power sources, sometimes social power sources. At first, we want to talk about the individual power sources. It is legitimate power, reward power, coercive power, expert power, and referent power. We have five systems to give and increase an individual's power. These are the source of power in individuals, in persons, single persons. How can people be more powerful than other people? In five areas: legitimate, reward, coercive, expert, and referent. Okay. We have some potential reactions to individual source of power. Source of power, we have five sources of power: coercive, reward, legitimacy, expertise, and referent. And we had potential from the followers' potential to the leaders, to the power holders. From commitment, compliance, to commitment, to resistance. It's very interesting that you can see the two oppositional side of compliance is resistance and commitment. We cannot have commitment at the same time resistance. At the first, everybody has compliance. The first reaction of all the followers to power holders is compliance. After that, if it is fair, the type of leadership style or power holding style is fair, we move from compliance stage to commitment stage. If it is not fair, we go from compliance stage to resistance stage. So we have three types of reactions as the followers to the leadership style, to the power holding style, to the power holders. At first, each of us as the followers has compliance. What can you do except of compliance as a reaction to your leader, to your power holders? After that, it is a good behavior. We have shared meaning. We have shared goal. We can have sometimes, for example, in organization, sometimes a sense of belongingness to the organization. Yes, we go from compliance to the commitment. It is my home. It is my organization, not your organization. I'm not follower. I'm your co-worker. I'm not the employee. I'm the shareholder. It's very good sense in an employee, for example, to be a shareholder or power shareholder. It's very, very good. If it is, if we can feel something like this in an organization, yes, we move from the compliance stage to the commitment stage. But if we as the employees, as the co-workers, as the followers, don't have any good sense of belongingness, good senses of fair behavior, fair shares, and other things to ourselves, so gradually, step by step, we will produce and we will broadcast a resistance to your power holding. So after that, we want to destroy your power holding. We want to destroy your power. We want to weaken you. So we are going from the compliance stage to the resistance stage. So at the middle line, at the basic part, every follower has a sense of compliance. So we can move from one stage to other stage. At the one side, it is resistance. At the second part, it is commitment. The positive part, the positive stage after compliance is commitment. The negative stage and the bad stage after compliance is resistance. These are the general reactions of followers to the leaders, to the power holders. And power holders, how can they hold the power? How can they have power? From five sources, as we talk about it: legitimate power, reward power. Well, why you are so power holder? Because I have the legitimate power. I have legitimacy. Why can you have some types of power? Because I can reward you, because the coercive, because I'm expert, because of my referent power or referent network. So source of power. You can see it is very, very wonderful and very, very uh, good guideline to talk about the leadership and power holding. That the highest range of commitment is for referent power, as you see. The lowest rate of commitment is for coercion, source of power. Legitimacy is about compliance. The reward is about coercion and legitimacy and referent. The midline is about the expert power. Influence tactics. At first, we have personal appeal, exchange, coalition building, legitimate tactics, and pressure. These are the influence tactics. Personal appeal. How can you have some appeal with others, and how can how many and uh, how many how charismatic are you against other people? How can you have some governance and some influence on their heart, not on their mind, not on their brain, on their thinking, on their feeling? As how can you exchange with other people as your followers? And legitimate tactics and pressure. Yes, pressure is not so good, I know. But sometimes, for some types of leadership and sometimes of power holding, the pressure is the only effective way you have. Sometimes, not always. And rational persuasion, inspirational appeal, consultation, and ingratiation. Rational persuasion. It's not good. Why? Because with rationality is not the power source that everyone can have. We have two types of reasoning: rational reasoning and emotional reasoning. Rational reasoning is sometimes of logical reasoning. It's based upon the mathematical logic, from A to B, from B to C. In emotional reasoning, when I ask you, why are you doing such thing? You say, because I like it. It is reasoning? Yes. Art is reasoning based upon the very logical basis of thinking? No. It is about your rationality? No. It is about your emotions, your feeling. So when you want to have a rational persuasion, you should have some back vocal and back sources of thinking rational and logical about things. And you should have the possibility and ability to transfer your rationality to other people's mind. If you cannot do it, see, yes, you have rationality, but you cannot do anything. And inspirational appeal is consultation. Okay. Career stages and power. Is there any question?
No.
Ronald, are you there or not?
Yeah, I'm here.
Welcome.
Can I?
You are muted, Ronald.
Okay. There you go.
You are silent today, Ronald. Why?
Where's that?
You are so silent today.
Yeah.
You
So,
don't engage. You don't engage with the discussions. You are our thinker in our group. You are the thinker.
Yeah, I'm definitely the thinker.
Critical thinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be the thinker, you know.
And this topic, power, is the most inspirational and also motivational topic in the history of human being. Very inspirational. Every thinker has thought about it. And a lot of thinkers or philosophers are power philosophers. For example, Nietzsche is a power philosopher. And Machiavelli is a power philosopher. He has his book name is Prince. Yeah, The Prince. The Prince is a book about how can you handle the government. And also it is a traditional book about the power. But power is one of the greatest. We are talking and instructing you and teaching you how to use power in your organization. Also, I know it. But other courses, like you have some topics about the power in the organizational theories, and also in the course of negotiation. Power is very important in the course of negotiation and conflict resolution. In the MBA, you have a course so-called conflict resolution and negotiation processes. In that course, we have a very, very good talking and discussion about the source of power and reactions to power. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Career stages and power. You have two dimensions: sources, power, and challenges, and career progression from early to late. Early progression and late progression, and sources, power, and challenges. Personal credibility, relationships, expertise, and gaining power. It is for the early progression, very necessary. You have some good, as here in America they said, your network is your net worth. It's very good for you to know about your network, because at the first part of your power holding, of spreading your power and increasing your network is very important. It is gaining power, expert and relationships, and personal credibility, your charismatic personality. But in the middle of way, we have legitimate power, appropriate use of power. You can use your progression, you can increase your progression from early progression to midterm progression with your legitimate power, appropriate use of power. And at the end part of the progression, all power sources letting go gracefully is all at the end of the power, at the end stage of power progression. Why? Because this is the highest level of power progression. Everyone wants to reach at that level. And you know that there are not a lot of people to reach that level, the highest level of power. Why? Because everybody has some types of power sources and not all the power sources. The same person, the only person that can have all types of power sources, he or she can reach the highest level of power progression. Okay? So there are always having power, using power, getting power, and also abuse and corruption with power is always a permanent challenge in the discussion about the power, permanent challenge. In organization, in departments, in families, in communities, in races, in ethnicities, and other things, and even in religions, you can see all time the challenges between the different power sources. and different power holders. So if you want to reach the highest level of power progression in your career progression, you should use all types of power for the highest part of highest level of career progression and power progression. But what are the source of an organization, source of power in an organization? How do you think about it? What are the source of power in an organization? Is there any source of power in an organization or in a team or not? We have individual source of powers, yes. Legitimate power, reward power, coercive power, expert power, and referent power. These are the individual power sources, power supplies. But what are the organizational power supply? What are the organizational? We have two parts, individual and organizational, or team, or departments, or groups. 5 power sources for individual. And what are the power sources for organizations? Coping with uncertainty, centrality, dependency, and substitutability. Coping with uncertainty. I will find it and send to all of you. I have found something. It is very good application to compare different countries just now in different aspects of power. One of them is uncertainty avoidance. What's the meaning of uncertainty avoidance? How do you think about this phrase, uncertainty avoidance or ambiguity tolerance? What is uncertainty avoidance in a government or in a country or in a culture, and also in an organizational team? Is there any relationship between uncertainty avoidance or not? Ambiguity tolerance, in the opposite of uncertainty avoidance is ambiguity tolerance. Is there any relationship? Can you find any relationship, any correlation even between the organizational success or team success and that team or that organization uncertainty avoidance or not? Or even in yourself, how can you use your uncertainty tolerance or uncertainty avoidance for your personal success? Is it important or not? We will talk about it just now. It is very, very important. Very, very important. How do you think, Yoshi? Our thinker is so silent today. Rajan, how do you think? The relationship between the success level, personal success level, organizational success level, and the ability to approach the uncertainty, to tolerate the uncertainty, or to avoid the uncertainty. Also, it is called uncertainty avoidance and ambiguity tolerance, or uncertainty tolerance. 2 parts, 2 different types of perspective about the uncertainty and ambiguity. Let's talk about COVID-19.
Okay.
COVID-19 seems that is very uncertain position, uncertain state.
Yeah.
We know a lot about it now, but also he or she or it, as COVID-19, knows a lot about us. As you have heard some days ago, the government says a new version of COVID-19 is coming.
Yeah.
A new version of COVID-19 is coming. It's an uncertain state, yes. ezen okob bulut kilastara. An uncertain condition is COVID-19 is an uncertain condition. We don't know anything about the future of this, for example, problem. When you cannot handle your organization in an uncertain position, your organization will be an anxious organization, and you will be an anxious leader. Why? Because anxiety is related to the uncertainty. Anxiety is related to the fear. And how do you think about fear? Fear is about something that you don't know what happened in the future.
Future.
It is about uncertainty, about ambiguity. Coping with uncertainty. How do you deal with your uncertainty in your organization? It is one of the power sources. The companies, the organization that can have a good deal with their uncertainty, they are very successful and they have very powerful organizations. As you can see just now in COVID-19, the companies moved from a state of previous state to the new state with a lot of problems, but finally they deal with the uncertainty of COVID-19. They will survive in the market. Personal organization that cannot serve or that cannot fit them with the new situation, with the uncertain situations, they will destroy. As you know, in Darwinism, in evolutionary theory, they said that survival of fittest, not survival of best. The best being will not survive. The fittest beings will survive. Fittest. Fitting with what? With uncertainty. And centrality. Centrality about the power sources. Concentration of decision-making process is one of the power sources of organizations. Finally, yes, in democratic societies, in democratic families, in democratic organizations, someone is manager. The point of decision making is not a democratic point. How do we can gathering information about our decision? This is democratic, yes. We can ask and know other people's, other shareholders, other co-workers about something. Yes, it is democratic, not dictatorship. But finally, one person should make a decision. He or she is the manager because he or she is the responsible. And dependency or independency. It is related to the degree of dependency or degree of independency in each organization that describes and determines the organizational that can work as an organizational or team power supply. On top executive. Source of power supply and power sources of top executive, top managers. Legitimate power and position. Position is very important here. Very, very important here. If your position is not formalized, is not accepted by other people as a legitimate leader, as a legitimate power holder, your position will destroy. And distribution of resources. One executive with a lot of resources, not concentrated on only one resource. It is like for example, money management. You know that in exchange market, we have three types of management. Market management, money management, and trader management. We need three types of management in the exchange market, stock market: money management, trader management, and market management. Market management is not related to you because it is the fundamental news and about the whole economic situation of the world. But two other parts of management, it is trader management and money management related to the trader. And I, for example, as a psychologist, can teach other people, can teach traders how to manage themselves, to manage their money. So money management and trader management have a very, very strong correlation with each other in a market. And control of decision criteria. For every criteria, you should have, or for every type of decision, you should have sometimes rigid and specific and well-known criteria that determine what the criteria, what decision is good, what decision is not good, what decision is effective, what decision is not effective. So they say, crystallize your mind. It is one of the greatest order in success coaching. Crystallize your mind. Crystallize your mind, for example, decision making. When you want to crystallize your mind about the decision making process, you should know about the criteria, decision making criteria. What are our features? What are our lines? What are our cutoff points? What are our criteria to know that which decision is good, is effective for our organization? This is one of the greatest power supplies and power sources of a top executive. Why? Because a lot of important duties of an executive manager is about decision making. Who is executive manager? Someone who can have good decisions about the situation of execution. And centrality in organizational structure. How much and how center-based is the position of an executive in an organization? In which part and which position of organization an executive manager will be in the future and is just now. Because of that, we can talk about the centrality and organizational structure. And the final is about the access of top executive as the power sources. One of the greatest things is power abuse and corruption. After talking about the different parts of power in the organization, about the power holders, about the power supply, individual power sources, and organizational power sources, and the relationship between the power sources and followers' reaction to power, we have the basic part of power. What is the basic part? The basic part is the abuse and corruption of power. What is abuse of power and what is corruption power? Because in the very formal and professional terminology, you know about the word about the organizational management and power usage and other things, these words are very near together, but honestly, they are different. They are not the same. Power abuse is different from power corruption, and corruption is, for example, different from having the power. What is abuse? The word abuse indicates that you should have some types of use in something. It is healthy. But when you don't use the same thing in the right way, in the right amount, in the right time, in the right place, and especially in prescribed position. For example, in medication, we have a lot of medication that are legal and they are prescribed for different prepared and predefined usage. For example, we have a lot of painkillers. If you have some pain in your body, you go to the physician and physician prescribe for you sometimes, for example, narcotic painkiller. It is usage? Yes, it is usage. Why? Because it is the solution for sometimes a problem you have in your body and prescribed by a professional, a physician. But if you use that narcotic medication after pain in other times of your life, in more than they have prescribed for you, and not for the gain for killing your pain, For example, for gaining some type of euphoria, it is not use, it is abuse. So we have a criteria point, a criteria line to differentiate between abuse and use. Use is prescribed, use is legal, use is supported by the professional, uses have some determined outcomes. But in abuse, for example, in power, taking advantage of one's power of personal gain, unethical, but not always illegal. I love it. I love this interpretation of abuse of power, power abuse. Sometimes power abuse is not illegal, but it is unethical. It is very, very important criteria to distinguish and determine the cutting line between the power use and power abuse. And a lot of times, power use is not illegal, it is legal. But at the humanistic approach, it is not ethical. It is not related to your human ethics that you should have in yourself as a manager, as a leader, as a human being given. In each position, you should have your personal and humanistic ethics that distinguish and determine and separate you and differentiation between you and other animals near us. One of the major characteristics of human beings is ethics. No other single animal has the ethical principle. No other single animal. None of them. Even monkeys, even chimpanzees, even apes, which are the nearest animals to us. The brain of apes is very, very, very near to our brain. At the evolutionary point, we have this part, humanoids, and we have apes and Homo sapiens. It is homos, Homo apes, and Homo sapiens. This is the same roots. So apes are very, very near to our brain. Even in apes, we cannot see any types of ethical issues and ethical systems and ethical thinking. So you should consider that a lot of power abuse are not legal, are not illegal. They are legal, but they are not ethical. Ethics is related to your thinking about the humanity, about to be fair, about that everything you want for yourself, you should want about the other people. It is the ethical parts. So consider that. A lot of power abuse, I am repeating again, because you are the future leaders. You are the future managers. You are the future businessman or woman. A lot of problems are illegal, are not illegal, but they are unethical. So when you are talking about the power advantage, power abuse, you are taking advantage of one's power of personal gain. But what about the corruption? Abusing one's power to benefit oneself or another person, both illegal and unethical. Can you consider the difference? Every type of corruption is illegal, but every type of abuse is not illegal.
Yeah.
When it is both illegal and unethical, it is corruption. FBI can check you in your corruptions, but sometimes only God can check you in power abuse. Only you and your superego, your God, your inner voice can check your power abuse, because it is not illegal, it is legal, but it is not ethical, it is unethical. But in corruption, we have a very powerful definition in the, for example, laws. Laws say that it is corruptive. Yes, it is corruption. Causes of power corruption, leader characteristic. Which characteristic, which leader, what types of leader can be corruptive? Inflated view of self. It is the Freud's the founder of modern psychology, Freud said inflated ego, inflated view of self. Yes, I am the king. When you are a king, you can have some type of inflation. Sorry, rigid and inflexible. The power holders who are rigid and inflexible, they are more at the risk of to be corruptive, misuse of their power holding, sense of entitlement. Can you see they have sometimes a personality disorder in corrupted people, in people with corruption? These are emotional personalities, like narcissistic personalities, borderline personalities. You can check it in the internet. These cluster of personality disorder are very, very common. You can find them everywhere around yourself. And they are very destroyer. With a lot of rebellion. Narcissistic personality, borderline personalities, antisocial personalities, and something which is called histrionic. Histrionic personalities are the personalities of people with a lot of show off of their character. They are histrionic personality. These four types of personalities are people, are leaders, are power holders with a high tendency to have corruption, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and also narcissistic borderline. I forgot the fourth. Narcissistic, borderline, histrionic, and the fourth one, I forgot the fourth one. These are the types of personality that they have a high tendency to be in a corruptive position, to have corruption. Not only antisocial, sorry, the fourth type is antisocial personality disorder. Willingness to exploit others. You can see also a big ego, a big sense of self, vicious and ruthless, overly concerned with power. It is not bad to concern with power, to concern with quality, to concern with everything which have a good dominancy and good influence and good support from others and to others. Why not? We are human beings. But when you have overly concerned with power, power is the main topic of your mind. And ingratiating with supervisor. Causes of corruption. So interesting. We see some characteristic in the followers that facilitate corruption. It is very, very good idea that corruption is not occurred in vacuum. Corruption is being done among at least two people, power holder and follower. Yes, we know about the characteristic of power holders for to be in a corruptive position, but now we can see that, wow, such a bad position. Some followers also facilitate the corruption. Followers who are fearful, followers who are always silent, Followers who have always agreement with everything. Yes, when you are always agreement we have with everything, when you are always in the fearful position, when you are always silent, yes, there are a lot of corruption rate, corruption ranking, corruption position against you. Compliance, we talk about it. Followers has had three positions to power holders: compliance, commitment, and resistance. Compliance is one of the worst reaction to power holder to induce and facilitate the corruption from power holders against the followers. Inaction, passive, and flattery position, flattery mind. And causes of corruption, power corruption, organizational factors. So we can see three types of factors for corruption: power holder characteristic factors, follower characteristic, follower factors, and the environment. We are talking about the power in the organization, in the groups, in the teams. So the third part is about the environment or organizational factors that induces which induce and facilitate the corruption. Organizational culture, the ritual, the customs, the beliefs, the standards, and subcultures in the organization. Hiring practices, what are our hiring policies and firing policies sometimes. It induce and sometimes facilitate the corruption. Short-term orientation, is any strategic thinking in the organization or no? We always want to gain some short-term outcomes in our organization. How do you think about the future of your organization? It is short-term future or long-term future? Are our manager, strategic manager, or only planner for the very instant outcomes and instant gaining? And centralized structure, is it sharing the power with other people in your company? Okay, when there is only one person, that person should be and maybe dictator, and sometimes a dictatorship among other people, and with or without or in other people and over other people. It is centralized organization. But when the power is shared with other people, it is not centralized structure of organization, centralized power. Yes, the probability of corruption will reduce after some times. So we have the corruptive cycle between the elements and factors of organization, between the elements and characteristic of power holder, and between the elements and characteristic of followers. These three elements are very important in corruption: environment, power holders, leaders, and also followers. Interaction between these elements will make and will shape a cycle, so-called corruption cycle. Leader characteristic, organizational factor, poor decisions, coercion, devaluation of others, and ethical and legal violation that we talk about the abuse and also corruption. What can we do about corruption? Solution to corruptions. Very, very clear message and consistency. Transparency. Transparency is very important. Why? Especially a lot of abuses, which are not illegal always, but always are unethical. These abuses, these power abuses, are interpreted, and the power holder will justify their abuse because of the message and the order, and the executives are not so transparent about their message. They don't talk very clear to their followers. And after that, they can justify their abusive behaviors. Why? Because the followers don't know very clear about their message, about the orders. Accountability and responsibility. Who is responsible? Who is accountable about the usage and abuse and misusage of power in an organization, in a team, in a department, in a group? And reducing uncertainty. Again, there's something like clear message, and it is uncertain. Reducing uncertainty is near to transparency and very clear about the orders, about the goals of organization, about the procedures. Nothing is here a personal issue. Everything is an organizational issue. We want to achieve that goal. We want to achieve that point, and nothing is personalized here. Everything is about the system, about the result, and it is result-oriented, product-oriented, and sometimes, and something more than sometimes, these are process-oriented. When the goals of this organization is process-oriented, it's very good to be clear. Why? Because in each process, we have a different recurrent and frequent stages. You should know as the follower, and you should know as the leader, and you should know as the power holder. It's so clearly, should know so clearly about the stages of the process. If there is no transparency, no clearance about the stages of the process of the organization to achieve the share meaning and share goal between the leaders, between the power holders and the employees and the co-workers and the followers, we can misunderstand and sometimes misunderstand the orders and who is responsible and who is accountable in the corruptive situation. So accountability is very important, that who is leader, who should know about the executive orders. For example, in America, we have some executive orders from the, for example, governors or president and other peoples. Someone who knows and someone who say and who talk and order the executive orders, he or she is accountable and responsible. Training for leaders and followers, we are talking. Protecting employees, this is very, very important, very, very important. One of the greatest source of in avoiding corruption, that it is the protective environment and legal protection for employees. Even we talked about it in the previous, we are one of the, as you can see here, no, here is fear. Fear is one of the greatest characteristics in employees, in co-workers, in followers that facilitate the environment, organizational environment, for example, for what? For corruption, for abuse. So when you're protecting employees, that employees doesn't have any fear to talk about the corruption. You saw the movement of Me Too in Hollywood after, for example, some sexual abuses in Hollywood, when the actors and actresses were protected, that no problem, talk about it. It's a movement after that. Me Too, yes. Every actor and actress, always a lot of actresses said that, yes, I was sexual abused because I didn't have any fear to talk about it. And open communication, well, the clearance and other things. And we have solutions to corruption. Leader involvement in day-to-day activities. We are talking about the different parts of leadership. When we are talking about the leaders here in this sentence, we are talking about leader of organization. But when we are talk about the power holders, maybe sometimes, for example, mid-level managers are power holders. They are not leader. They are not top-level manager. They are mid-level manager, but power holder, and they can have that. They can choose some types of corruption against other people that work for them, that they co-work and employee and subordinates. So leaders at the top of the organization, when they have in the day-to-day activities very near to their subordinate, to the other employees, it raises the risk of corruption. Why? Because they are not so far from the employees that can be corrupted, for example, by mid-level managers. Reducing follower dependence on leader, okay? Empowerment is a very important topic here. Empowerment is about giving power to employees to share their thinking with the organization. Objective performance measure, well, for example, when everything is objective, it is measurable, it is clear, it is transparent, it's a good position to reduce and to stop the corruption, because a lot of corruption, especially abuse, power abuse, not corruption, is happening because of not to be clear about the orders. So performance measures, when they are objective performance measure, it is good. Involvement of outsider, supervisors, outsider of the organization, and changing the organizational lecture. Okay. And empowerment, leadership factors. We are talking at the last part about the empowerment of followers. Create a positive emotional atmosphere, set high performance standards. Okay, create a positive emotional atmosphere, set high performance standards, encourage initiative and responsibility, reward openly and personally, and practice equality and collaboration, and express appropriate confidence in subordinates. These are the good stages of elements of empowerment from leadership to followers. With these tactics, every leader can empower the followers. But what are the organizational factors and outside factors to empower the followers? Decentralized structure. Everybody is here as a shareholder with our company. Nobody is centralized as a central and superpower hero and superpower leader. Select and train leaders appropriately. When your leaders are trained very appropriate to their situation, they are trained for leadership, the risk of corruption will reduce, and the opportunity for empower the personnel and employees will increase. Select and train employee appropriately. Remove bureaucratic constraints. It's a very bad situation in the company to have a lot of bureaucratic constraints, because we want to train the employee and empower them to be a good employee, to be effective co-workers, to be the thinker followers, and now we have a lot of bureaucratic constraints. Remove bureaucratic constraints will solve the problem of empowering. Reward empowering behaviors, very good, and create fair and open organization policies. Decentralized structure, we talk about it, and leadership challenge. Understand the reason for high salaries, market competition, high risk jobs, it is very important. Attracting talent, this is very important. We have a lot of tests and inquiries here for strength finding and talent finding. For example, the company Gallup, as you know, Gallup is the most important research company all around the world, and about not decision making, but offering decision or even to governments. Gallup is very important. In Gallup, there are some types of inquiries about the talent finding and strength finding. It is very important now that to know who is proper for which job or for which part of working. Fairness is highly subjective, that leadership challenge. Organization in crisis need to attract talent. This is very important. When you have some talented people in your organization, or you can attract some talented people, you can move beyond the crisis. And the high salary differentials affect morale. Okay, is there any question or not? Okay, you have time to pass your test, and also next week you have midterm. You have midterm, and at that time, I want you to study your at least PowerPoints very good, because a lot of this are not so related to the only PowerPoints, but the PowerPoints. Okay, have a good time.
Professor, I have a question. Is there any
Yeah.
case? Is there any case study?
Yeah, you should do any case study by yourself. and send me. I think your case study is here. Take a minute, take a minute. Take a minute. I should stop the record, and after that we can talk about it.
Press mute. You're on mute. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now you can hear.
Okay. Start work on case study, yes. And in case study and in your other assignments, it is very important for university to work based upon APA style. APA style is a style of writing, which is confirmed with American Psychological Association. It is very important for all types of human studies, not only for psychology. For example, in management, business, all are the social science and also humanities. APA style for writing is very confirmed all around the world style. For example, writing the articles, writing the case studies. At first, I highly recommended you to study the APA style, and after that, you can prepare your case study.
Hi. Thank you.
Any question?
Good. Thank you.
Bye, Ronald. Bye, Nadine.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.